Guys, welcome back everyone to Z-Zone Rants. I'm your host Zonic, and today I'm diving into Alien Rouge Incursion. For those of you that don't know, this is the latest entry into an iconic Alien franchise, so if you're a fan of horror, sci-fi, or just love getting your heart rate up with some Xeno action, stick around. This is going to be a full breakdown, and we're going to cover everything from gameplay to the graphics. Let's get this. Starting off, we're going to do a quick overview. Alien Rouge Incursion was developed by Servios and published by 20th Century Studios. It launched as a VR exclusive title in December 2024 for PSVR 2, MetaQuest, and PC VR, where it was then in 2025 that they dropped the Evolved Edition, and that's what makes it playable on standard consoles. This is what we have played. I have not touched the VR, so just to let everyone know. The game is set between the original Alien and Alien movies for the timeline, and you play as Zula Hendricks. She's a colonial marine investigating a distress signal from a close friend on the remote planet LV-354, or better known as Perdon. Of course, things go south fast, as they generally do when xenomorphs are present, and you end up with a large xenomorph infestation in a research facility that you crash land at after being shot out of the sky by automated defense systems. Sadly, the whole experience only clocks in at about 5 to 7 hours, so it's a much more compact adventure than an epic saga, and it blends horror, action, and exploration. With all this though, it stays true to the Alien mythos. But does it live up to classics like Alien Isolation? My opinions are mixed. It's got that franchise essence, but it's not without its flaws. So, now that I've read all the base information, let's go ahead and get into the opinions. We're going to start with the story and the atmosphere, which, if we're being honest, are the game's strength. The story follows Zula and her lone Sith companion named Davis as they unravel the horrors of a forsaken Perdon. It's got these compelling characters, it's got solid voice acting, kinda. I wouldn't really say Oscar worthy, but it's not bad overall. Like, who am I to judge? I'm not a voice actor, so I mean, It's also got a fresh twist that fits right into the Alien lore, so all you gotta do on that is think about corporate greed. Corporate greed, that's it. When you're exploring the derelict and destroyed facility, you definitely get to feel immersed, even in the Evolved Edition, so I can only imagine what the VR world is like. The creepy, dimly lit corridors, really, they just kind of pull you in, even on your computer screen, and the sound design is top notch. I would say 10 for 10. You've got these iconic motion tracker beeps, you've got distant hissing from events, and you've got echoing footsteps from all directions, so you don't know if the attack's coming for you or if it's just in the vents running around, and that can really lead to like a built constant tension. I found my heart rate, it would just climb when the music would change, and I'd be like, oh no, is it coming for me? So every xenomorph encounter had me on that edge. It's legitimately frightening, and I think for me that's awesome because it captures the dread from the films and that original Alien dread. It's not just a bunch of cheap jump scares, so I mean, I greatly appreciate that. It does, however, shift more towards a standard shooter feel rather than pure horror, especially when some of the missions are just wave after wave of Xenos. Still, for fans of the Alien franchise, this story alone might make it worth being checked out by you. Just mentioning that. Now, we're going to move on to gameplay and mechanics. At its core, this is an action-oriented shooter, and it's got some exploration, we're going to get into that, and light puzzle solving thrown in, and I do mean light. I'm talking like some electrical puzzles that are pretty easy, and finding a valve to shut off a pipe. Nothing complicated. The combat, it does feel intuitive. It's very much like basically every shooter that you've ever played, you know, especially with the controls. The Xenomorph AI, I mean, it started out pretty dumb at the beginning, and I thought it was pretty straightforward and really kind of turned me off from the game, but then it turned out that it's actually pretty smart. It does have its weaknesses though. We are going to get into that. Later in the game, it starts stalking you from the shadows or the vents, or it's waiting behind an object, or it's waiting to jump out at you. I mean, they did that very well. Exploration though, is, in my opinion, it's not that rewarding. Sure, you're scavenging for ammo, health packs, and very small bits of lore, but the small linear map will have you right back to the same place you just were, so it's the same lore, and a lack of items respawn, it really puts a lag on your resources. You end up having to do way more resource management later, and the more you go into the game, the more this becomes real, because you end up going back to the same spots, and because you're in the same spots, you've already taken the item spawns, so it amps up the survival aspect, I guess you could say. But here's the thing, it gets repetitive. The core loop, so to speak, involves navigating corridors and dealing with randomized xenospawns, and I do mean random. I'm talking anywhere from 1 to 6. I think I even saw 7 at one point, and it can feel very frustrating after a while, especially when you're in a long play session and you're just constantly getting spammed by xenos, or you don't see any at all. So, I mean, it's also frustrating whenever you end up backtracking only to run into new spawns of xenos in an unknown number, so you don't know what you're going to run into. And sometimes you'll backtrack and see 0, and then in the same spot you'll see 6. So that also leads me, backtracking and running around leads me to the save system, and my gripe about that. There is no save where you are. There is only set save positions, and this can be frustrating. Like if you have to walk away from the game, or you end up not saving for a minute and you end up all the way across the map. Before you jump me in the comments, I know there are a lot of games that are exactly like this. I understand that. This is just a small nitpick, something that bothered me. I get there's a lot of games, so don't tear me up too bad in the comments. I appreciate that. In the Evolve version though, like, you have noticeable issues that pop up with weapon feedback. It feels kind of weak, and the movement, in my opinion, it kind of feels floaty. I even mentioned this in part 1 of my playthrough. If you haven't checked that out, go check it out. I did play through this game so that you don't have to, and almost straight off the bat, I mentioned the floatiness. So that's kind of sad there. Enemies can also be bullet spongy, and that seems to go, the further you go in the game, they tend to get more bullet spongy, and that makes ammo management like even harder. And especially the longer you go, like I said, the spawns are gone, so you don't have as much ammo. You got these random spawns, so now you got random bullet sponges running around, and you just run out, and it gets very frustrating. And there's no melee weapon, which I think there should be, but there's not, to really make up for not having that ammo. I get it, there's Xenos, but come on, a melee weapon's not that hard. Also, you end up with the AI, it sometimes glitches out, and you end up just looking at a Xeno, and it's looking at you, and it's bugged into its hiding spot. And so you're just looking at each other and it's not doing anything. And it does lead to some funny moments. I'm not going to lie, but at the same time, like, it's a horror game. I'm not really looking for comedy. And at the original release of this game, there was mention of a soft lock on one of the quests. Thankfully, this seems to have been fixed, and I did not run into this. So there are also many random items just laying around, sometimes in the way of resources that can be picked up, and they serve no purpose. So you're sitting there and you're running around away from Xenos, and you see a locker that you left open that you just happen to remember that you left ammo in there, and so you run up to it and you press E and you think you're grabbing the ammo, and you grab a screwdriver that can only be thrown, and it does no good for you. And I understand that when this is a VR game, random asset interaction makes sense, but when you're porting to console, you should probably remove pointless item interactions. And I know, but to add yet another downside, there's a lack of upgrade or really deeper progress systems, and it kind of makes the exploration feel meaningless besides the ammo management. And I'm sure these mechanics shine in VR, but I mean, they falter whenever they're in PC or console, and it makes it feel kind of like a cheap port. So there's that. Take that into consideration. Now, graphics and technical performance. The game runs in Unreal Engine 5, so it nails that retro-futuristic, realistic alien aesthetic. You've got the industrial horrorscape, you got the dimly lit, misty corridors, and those classic Weyland-Yutani company vibes. It's sharp, it's immersive, and to be honest, performance is generally solid. Even on my mid-tier PC, I was running 60 frames on epic settings while recording, and yes, there was some minor stuttering whenever I was entering the loading screens or the airlocks, which was the transition of scenes, so there's a lot loading in on that. But I mean, the art direction and the audio is killer, so if you're into atmospheric detail, you will definitely appreciate this game and how it brings the Alien universe to your screen. So moving on, let's break it down into pros and cons. Starting with the pros, top of it all, it's faithful to the Alien franchise. It's got an excellent atmosphere. The sound design alone is a win. And then you've also got those frightening xenomorph encounters, and I'm not talking about the random spawns of 12. I'm talking about when you're going through the dark shadows and stuff, and you happen to look up and there's one 2 inches from your face and it roars and jumps down. Man, that is the icing on the cake, especially when I'm looking at an Alien game. So now the cons. The gameplay loop gets repetitive with frustrating, and I do mean frustrating, enemy spawns. It's got weak AI, and like I said, they get smarter, but it's still weak. They get caught under like shelves and whatnot, and the combat is, I mean, like I said, it feels floaty. The firearm response is slow, and to get to the main problem with it, it's short. I mean, the game is short and it has limited to no replayability. There's no real upgrade systems. It has a very linear story, and that gives me no reason to even come back to try a more difficult setting or to try the same setting at all to get a new ending or anything like that. All these bugs that I've mentioned and these performance issues can also really drag the game down. It did for me anyway. Maybe it doesn't bother you. But wrapping it up with my final verdict, Alien Rouge Incursion is mid. It's an imperfect addition to an Alien gaming lineup with a lot of problems, and I said it before, but this is obvious that it was a port from VR game to console, and it seems like very little effort was made to make it better on console. It's entertaining, but it's got a price tag of $39.99 for the deluxe, which just gets you an art book and a soundtrack. Part 2 is currently in development, and that has a potential, if the part 2 is the same price as part 1, to go to an $80 game, and this just isn't that. It's not worth that. It's a cheap port from VR to console, and I feel like for me it just fell flat. If you're an Alien enthusiast, you'll definitely dive in and you'll enjoy it. Otherwise, if you're not, maybe wait for a sale or more patches or something along those lines. In the end, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. It was a solid effort. It's just not quite there for the price point. So, without further ado, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, hit the like button, subscribe for more game breakdowns and playthroughs. I do a review after every game I play, and let me know in the comments, have you played Rogue Incursion, VR or non-VR? I'm really interested in VR because I haven't played it. I can only imagine. I want to hear what you guys think about the gameplay in that. But hey, non-VR too, let me know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and guys, I will see you in the next one.